home is known as French colonial design, and it was built in 1856 by a wrecker captain named Asa Tift. If you've ever heard of Tift College or Tift in Georgia, they're the same four brothers from Connecticut. Two settled here, two settled in Georgia. There's a tree here on the right that has multiple trunks. This is called a Spanish laurel tree. If you look behind that Spanish laurel tree, you'll see a large round white cement structure. Look at the top of that large round white cement structure and you'll find a lighthouse. The Key West Lighthouse was a still working lighthouse until 1969. It's not a museum today, and you can go up 88 steps at the top. Total, the original lighthouse was 4 blocks ahead of the southernmost point. The hurricane of 1846 was called the Great Havana. There were a lot of families here from the Bahamas, including mine, but in Key West, they washed that original lighthouse into the ocean with 13 people hiding inside. One survivor, 12-year-old girl washed up on shore freezing. How she survived, nobody can tell you. The girl lived to be 90. 88 steps to take you to the top of that lighthouse. Now there's a little yellow house here on the left with green doors and shutters. My wife has labeled our house the Coconut. This house was built in 1899 for my grandmother. We've been here almost 49 years now. I know it's small, but we didn't have any children and it worked quite well for us. And when we moved in there 48 plus years ago, it was painful. Alright, now listen to this. The U.S. Navy. Boys and girls, there has been a United States naval presence on this island since 1822. Your Navy still owns more property on this island than anyone by far. There are 5 separate naval land axes in Key West alone, and 9 miles north, Topeka Naval Air Station is one of the largest Top Gun training facilities in the Western Hemisphere. This is a Navy town. One of those naval land axes is coming up on the right, this next stop sign. It's called Naval Air Station Truman Annex. That's where a lot of our jet pilots and their families live. When we get up here and you look at this gate, you might want to say, Kenny, that's a rather secure gate for residential area. Well, this is also the headquarters of the Joint Caribbean Task Force Command, and it's where a local SEAL detachment teaches other people how to hold their breath underwater. I have no idea what any of you think of the Navy, but they have talent, they have dedication. Children, I grew up in this U.S. town,
right to the right of the track.
That and a baseball scholarship.
The bulldozer.
That's a whole other story.
This is close
Now,
to
ahead of us is the southernmost point.
Yeah.
You can see it's under construction. It washed away into the ocean after 2 major storms in April and May, and they have to redo that. It's going to take 12 more
Wrapped in the
months.
wood. That's the actual
We're
buoy.
still the southernmost calm train in America right now. Anybody back there?
They just closed it off like 2 weeks ago.
Well, you're actually 86 miles further south than Brownsville, Texas on the latitude. I have no idea why, but that seems to upset the City Council of Brownsville, Texas. Now, children, coming up here on the line, on the other side of this parking lot, you'll see a large yellow building with a conservatory behind it. You need to go here.
For
This is
rent.
a butterfly conservatory. There are over 200 different species of butterflies flying around in that tropical environment. And there are also 2 adult flamingos walking around that like people. The name of these flamingos are Brett and Scarlet. My grandniece and I go there all the time. We love it. Now, 1 block to the right here is a buoy at the southernmost point. If you guys want to ride over here when I'm doing this tour, I'll be glad to drop you off right here. That's on the way to the roundhouse to take this train to that. Right now, I want to talk about cigars. Now, in 1831, a man named William Wall from London started the very successful cigar factory here.
Cuban coffee.
This balcony here on the right above these red umbrellas in a restaurant called La Tida. You can see that balcony. La Tida. Well, it stands for La Terraza de Marquis, or the balcony of Marquis.
Plenty of room.
Children, when I was very young, say second grade, everybody was learning this little poem. And the first line went, Jose Marti would never see Cuba free. 15 days after that speech, he was killed at a battle known as Dos Rios, the two rivers in the state of Santiago, eastern Cuba. Right where that hurricane is headed when it leaves Jamaica. Anybody back there familiar with the poetry of Jose Marti?
Negative.
I bet you are and you don't know it. Now, back in the 60s, we had something called the folk era. One of the biggest voices was a man named Pete Seeger. One of his greatest hits, and forgive my voice, Juan Doesn't Matter, Monica Von Doesn't Matter. Can you remember that song?
I do.
That is a poem by Jose Marti about a very sincere man from the island of Palms and the beautiful woman from Guantanamo. Building on the right is the Gato building. Now these are county offices, but that used to be a wood structure, and that was their Bordo Gato cigar factory, and it was the largest on the island, but not the only one. When I tell people we rolled 100 million cigars in 1 year, a lot of people find that hard to believe, but they start seeing these factories that are still here. Who do you think made the most money in a cigar factory besides the owner? How about strippers? Clothes? No. Strippers is what they call people who have the manual dexterity to quickly strip the veins out of a tobacco leaf without breaking the leaf itself. It's very important with high quality cigars. They were called strippers. Well paid.
So did they still produce cigars here?
We're an island on the northern basin of the Atlantic Caribbean. Something called yellow fever has hit this island many times. The worst yellow fever epidemic in Key West was the summer of 1829 when it took 15% of every man, woman, and child. After 7 more major epidemics in 1895, the state of Florida sent down several health officers to bring this under control. But nobody knew the cause. In fact, most physicians were convinced that yellow fever was a highly contagious disease from man to man. Is it? No. Who proved it? Well, in 1901, in Cuba, a United States Army surgeon down there by the name of Walter Reed proved that it was mosquito-borne and not contagious at all. You know that name? Walter Reed. He actually died within 12 months of that. In 1902, he returned to Washington, D.C., and at the age of 37 years old, his appendix ruptured and he died from massive infection, peritonitis. 37.
Walter Reed Memorial.
Well, in the hurricane of 1919 hit Key West right between the eyes. That's a
They ain't
category
reading too much.
5. Took 72 lives on this island. So we know hurricanes. When that hurricane hit, the Mother Superior of the convent in the hospital was Sister Louisa Gabrielle. Building come up here on the right is St. Mary's Star of the Sea, the compound convent and school, a minor basilica, and the nuns are still here. The nuns have been here since 1842. They came out of Canada, Quebec. But after that hurricane, Sister Gabrielle in 1920 built something called a grotto, or a cave. She said, as long as our grotto and statue remains and is respected, no harm will come to anyone in Key West from hurricanes. There's a bold statement for you. Come over here on the right, you're going to see an exit opening in the wall. Look at the exit opening all the way back. You see her grotto and statues are there, and the candles are lit. And then every morning. See the grotto? Here's the fun part. Cuba, that grotto's been there since 1920. So, before 1920, the number of people that have died on this side of a hurricane is about 1,200. We don't know the exact number. But since 1920, we do know the exact number, and that number is 0. priest calls it. And I'm quite aware of what my little Episcopalian wife calls it. I call it one of my favorite stories. Now, have any of you noticed yet that all the houses in Old Town have metal roofs? Every single one of them. There are two reasons for this. Number one, we did not have a freshwater supply to mainland Florida until 1941. That's when the Army Corps of Engineers built our pipeline. Now before that, the majority of our drinking water came from well and rain. Rain came off these roofs into a central gutter and then stored into the house as something they call a cistern. You know that word cistern, right? Every one of the older homes has a cistern, even though it's not used. You guys remember my house? My lovely Canadian bride turned our cistern into a goldfish pond 33 years ago. I still have to keep replacing the goldfish from time to time because there are raccoon on this island and raccoon eat goldfish. But she won't let me put a cover over it because she says it takes away from the ambiance of her waterfall. Children, there are generations of raccoon on this island who are blessing me and my family for the free buffet for the last 3 decades. But it makes her happy. This makes me happy. So what's the reason for Metal Ridge today? Well, it's actually to prevent the spread of fire. We have a lot of old wooden buildings that are very close together on a very small island, and the threat of fire is always, and we've had many. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But this is my last tour of the day, and I want to give you some more extras. There's a tree up here on the right that needs to be pointed out. It's not on the tour. This is not just any tree. This happens to be the largest producing mango tree in North America. And over 2,000 mangoes came off this tree late spring, early summer, and over 2,000 mangoes came off this tree last year. Now, the people that own this tree and own this house every year put up a wooden stand in front of this fence, and it says free mangoes, and they stock this thing all summer long, even get a cherry picker over here to get the top. And everybody with a big mango tree in their yard does the same thing. Why? Because children, there's no way in God's little green earth that we can eat can of puree. All the mangoes that come up this island in one summer. If you go to Lindsay, Key West, and you're going to pay good American money for a mango in the summer, you are not managing your money well. You don't have to do that. It's the same thing with avocados in October. I've taken over 22 off my tree this year. There's 6 more up there that's ready to come down. You got these big old green smooth-skinned avocados called reeds. Children, anybody can make guacamole. But I like to make my granny's avocado black pepper ice cream. My grandmother used to make that for me. I know what it sounds like. I'm telling you, it's good. Anyway, the reason for Middle Ridge today, like I said, is to prevent the spread of fire. And the worst fire we had was 1886. It was a fire that began downtown and burned for 4 hours out of control. It destroyed 30% of downtown. So these metal roofs you see today are actually mandated by fire law. Because a fire is much less likely to spread if it has to jump from metal roof to metal roof, and it works. I'm going to hold my voice on this next block. I've got everybody doing this. There's a young girl that lives on this block. She is seriously ill. We're doing this in support of this child and her family. You're not going to miss any tour. I'll make sure of that. Before I go in there, look at that storage ahead on the right. There used to be a wood structure. That was a cigar factory of the Rodriguez family. I'll be right back. The have, which is the House by the Sea. This hotel you're going to see is built of imported German concrete.